Welcome to the Delight Your Marriage podcast. You're joining me, Bella Rose, as I dive deep into the beauty, power, and truths about intimacy. Learn not only the practicals, but the heart behind what making love is all about. Delight your marriage. All right. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Bella Rose. And I am so excited. This weekend is the weekend of the free live men's masterclass. It is so exciting. Oh my gosh. So there is such great content. And my prayer is really that people's lives would be changed. Their whole lives would be changed on this weekend's live masterclass. I'm going to be there giving it my all, and you get a front row seat from the convenience of your own couch. So just for men, and really to focus, bring your pen and paper, ask God to be with you, and be in a private place, quiet, be able to focus in. I think it's going to be awesome. Alrighty, so let's talk about today's conversation that I had with a graduate captain. So he graduated from the Masculinity Reclaimed program. So after the third lesson of the free live men's masterclass, I'll be sharing more about the program. But that is far after tons and tons of teaching and value that I'm going to be giving you for free. But Captain went on to continue the journey of growth and took the Masculinity Reclaimed program. And this is his story. So he started out with quite a lot of suffering in his marriage, in intimacy, but he also brought in a lot of difficult stuff from before he was married. So I'll let him share the story, but it's a really beautiful healing journey that God took he and his wife on throughout. And I'm just really excited to share his journey. And you'll hear just through the conversation, not just his story, but also you'll hear the shifts in mentality that he had that I think are vital for men and women to have in order to really be able to change things in their marriage. So if you are a husband and you are looking for transformation in your marriage, I think that this is going to be inspirational for you. So look forward to having you on the men's live training. Go to delightyourmarriage.com/men's training. Again, it's delightyourmarriage.com/men's training. If you are listening to this and you've just missed the weekend, for a limited time, there will be a replay available. So definitely sign up as soon as you can so you can get that. If you're listening to this far in the future, that link will still be live to get on the list for possibly the next training or whatever I have for you men in the future. So do still go to delightyourmarriage.com/men's training as soon as you can before you forget, because people have asked me that if certain trainings are still available and I close them, so they're not. So definitely do it as soon as you can. All right, let's dive into Captain's awesome interview. Welcome, Captain. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Yeah, me as well.
Awesome. I'm curious if you would be open to sharing with me just what was intimacy, what was marriage like before the MR program, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to share that. I guess, where do you want me to begin? So my wife has struggled with debilitating anxiety for the majority of her life, just from childhood trauma, from her mom's kind of undiagnosed mental illness. And so I knew what I was getting into ahead of time. I knew her anxiety. We had talked about it and she was in counseling and stuff, but it was a struggle. So for the first year of our marriage, we couldn't even argue, because as soon as I would show any frustration or just anything, she would literally, her brain would just shut off and she would just shut down and disassociate from the situation, and we would get nowhere. So fast forward a few years, that was actually a fantastic thing in our marriage, because it really helped. I really had to deal with my frustration and anger in other ways to be able to communicate with my wife. And I could really count on one hand how many arguments we've had in our marriage So we've had pretty good communication. So we have a great marriage. But my wife grew up in a very conservative home. And so where sex was never really talked about unless it was in the area of abstinence and sex is only for marriage and not before marriage. It was nothing that was discussed. And so there was all this unknowns and bad, hard heart, bad. Sex was like for procreation and not for fun. I would say the last almost 13 to 14 years of our marriage has been a struggle sexually. There was, on average, it was probably we would have sex maybe once a month, and there was no connection. It was more like, I really felt like she was just doing it because she knew I needed it, which, to be honest, I'd rather masturbate. I know it sounds crazy, but there's more intimacy in that than there would have been. There wasn't my wife. And I'm not blaming this on her, but that's where a lot of my struggle with pornography came in, and masturbation, and just that whole struggle, which opened up all kinds of doors, not good ones. In my past, I was very promiscuous before I got married, and many girlfriends, many sexual partners. And so I came into the marriage with really high sexual expectations. That bar was set way too high for my wife, and she wasn't able to reduce what my expectations were, not even close. And so that really caused a lot of problems. My high expectations and her very naiveness to it, or just her upbringing, that's always been a struggle. But also to that, we've had a great marriage. I love my wife more than anything. We have great communication. We have fun together. We like to laugh. Like, it's been great. So leading up to before I started the MR program, it was still a struggle. It was starting to get better over the last couple of years just because of communication, but still maybe twice a month we would have sex.
I'm curious how that also impacted just all the many areas of your life. How did having sex once a month, twice a month, where it still left you feeling pretty alone in the midst of that?
Big time. It did affect a lot of our marriage because I didn't feel like I was important to my wife. I felt her anxiety was more important than me. And so that caused there's some hard-heartedness and some malice. I was pretty, closed off to that. And it hurt. And anytime that I would want to talk about sex, and I would bring it up in a moment where I tried bringing it up like in the moment, and it's just not good. So I created the moments and try to talk to her about it in a peaceful manner and just say, hey, can we just talk about sex? Can we talk about just all the ins and outs and dislikes and likes? And anytime that I would bring it up, it would usually shut down, and it wouldn't really go anywhere just because, once again, it's a very off-topic subject for her and it caused a lot of anxiety. So she would just avoid it. Yeah, that's where we left off just before the MR program.
Was it impacting you as a father? Was it impacting work? Were there other things that you could tell it permeated other aspects? I'm curious what your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm still mulling through that because I just stuffed it away. I was like, this is what it is. And I'd given up on it just because I was stuck. I just didn't know where to go with it. I didn't feel respected as a husband and as a man in my house. I didn't feel like all of this caused, there was always this rift between my wife and I. There was always this tension. You had mentioned one of the last modules that your wife or your spouse should be your vacation. When you come home, it needs to be just a breath of fresh air, seeing my wife. And I never felt that for years, that when I come home from work, I never really felt that because there was always that tension. It wasn't that breath of fresh air. I couldn't rest in my wife. And I'm pretty sure that just that frustration, it definitely translated into me being a father. And because there was always that tension, it did translate into my children where I wasn't as patient with my children and I wasn't as there for my kids because I was just always frustrated. Yeah. And then my relationship with my daughter, she's my baby girl. She's my baby girl. But I noticed I started not wanting to connect with her as well. And I'm not sure like all the ins and outs of that are whys yet, but I know that it's all tied to this lack of respect as a man, as a husband. Not that I demand it or I crave it. It translated into work I became a workaholic, and because at work I was respected. At work I'm a business owner, and so I have employees and stuff, and I'm the boss and I'm the man. And not that I'm not that kind of boss. I'm not the do it because I said so. I'm right in the trenches with my employees, working hard with them, learning and growing. And it's a great work environment where everybody's respected. And so I just found myself working a lot, 60 to 80 hours a week, just so I could not be home. And then when I'd get home, I would busy myself even more just to keep myself occupied, to just not have to deal with all of the other stuff. Through that, I really started feeling like my kids were a burden to me. They weren't, they cramped my style, if you could say that. It was a struggle. But it wasn't until, here I'm getting emotional. I'm a crier, by the way. I cry at Disney movies. It wasn't until probably a month and a half ago that I finally admitted it out loud and admitted it to my wife. And I think I admitted in one of my accountability forms that I didn't want to be a dad. I mean, I did, but it was just a struggle. It was just a constant struggle. My kids were constantly cramping my style. I was just always frustrated with them. There was no joy. When I looked at my kids, I wasn't looking at them like, oh, these are my kids and I'll do anything for them kind of stuff. I was looking at them like, man, you're cramping my style. Quit asking me questions. Leave me alone. But as soon as I admitted that out loud, as soon as I finally came to grips with that in my head, everything's changing a little bit. And that's new still. It wasn't until about a month and a half ago that I finally came to that. Yeah. And it's been an open topic with my wife, and it's been great to be able to talk about it, be able to figure out how she can come alongside me and help me re-enter into the father role, and how to be a support to me versus a hindrance or like a pointing finger. I feel like she's in the room with me now, because before I didn't feel like she was in the room. I mean, there was one time recently in this last year that I actually dismounted from her and I said, I'm done. I said, I don't want to do this. I said, this isn't, I said, sex is, and I straight up told her, that's when I told her, I said, masturbation is more intimate than this right now. And I said, I'm not saying this to hurt you. This is how I feel. And I'm struggling here. I said, but I can't do this. I said, I want you here with me. I said, because it's not about my penis in your vagina. It's about me being close to you, skin to skin, nothing hidden connection. I think as far as sexually, I think I lean more towards the female sex than the male sex, to be honest. I need that connection, the emotional part too. So
that's amazing. Captain, this is amazing. So I think you've alluded to this a little bit already, but yeah, what would you say are some of the celebrations you've had now going through the program in your life?
Yeah, I had a couple celebrations before the program, and I think those are kind of really important.
Okay.
I shared a little bit with you, but I think this is the perfect time for it. But so this topic of sex has been an off-topic subject for a very long time. And it wasn't until, I would say, probably about a month and a half before the MR program started, before I even knew about the MR program. And my parents come up and we're visiting. And my mom's been listening to you for quite a long time now. I don't know how long, probably from the beginning. And just her listening to you and her husband, my stepdad, John, their sex life is phenomenal. You've helped them out immensely just by them listening to your podcasts. Wow. So my mom was excited about it and was sharing a little bit about it, but not really all of it. But so they were staying at our house, and I have a camper, and they were staying in a camper because we're in the middle of a giant remodel process. And they had taken a nap, and they got up from a nap. And when they got up from the nap, my mom decided to give my stepdad a hand job. And my mom's telling us this story afterwards, just as a matter of fact. And my
hero.
Wife, I can just, right? Yeah, my wife is just beat red in the face because she's more conservative. And my mom just keeps talking about it and pushing it and sharing. But she was sharing it because John, when he climaxed, when he orgasmed, he couldn't make any noise. He was just silent. But just the time he orgasmed, our rooster, whose name is Steve, crowed right outside their window, just cock-a-doodle-doo. And so thanks to Steve, because my mom was telling us a story because she wanted to get the funny part about Steve. Thanks to Steve, it brought up we were able to talk about sex and all of that stuff, and where there wasn't any anxiety. What transpired after that, a couple of days after that, my wife went backwards and went back to, being really quiet about it, not wanting to talk about it. And so a couple of days after my parents left, I was on the phone with my mom talking about the MR program, and which just led into more conversation and stuff. And my mom was asking me more questions about our sex life and how she can pray for us. Wow. And my wife happened to walk in when I was talking to my mom about this stuff. It was not confidential, but not that I was hiding anything, but it's just stuff that I can't talk to my wife about. And so my wife immediately got mad and so I said, love you, Mom, gotta go. I hung up, and there was a pretty big argument after that, just about sex. And my wife made the comment, she goes, anything that you can share with your mom, you can share with me. And I said, well, the thing is, I wasn't trying to hide anything. And I said, but the truth is I can't. I said, because every time we talk about it, you shut down or you get real defensive and and I don't want that. That's not what I want. I want to be able to talk about it. And so it ended with us we were outside when this happened, just parting ways. She was angry. I was angry. I guess I wasn't angry. I was just hurt, just really hurt. I was wanting connection with my wife, and it really had nothing to do with sex. It had to do with, I needed that intimacy, and I just wasn't getting it. And I was just so hurt. And that's where it broke. That was actually a fantastic argument looking back. And within a few days after that, my mom gave her the book, Delight in Your Husband. And she read it. And as soon as she read it, it was like something clicked in her. I haven't even read the book yet, and I want to, just to know what she read. But halfway through reading the book, she literally sends me a text and just says, she goes, man, this book's making me horny. And she goes, what are you doing right now? I was like, coming in the house. And so no joke, from that point on, it's been 3 times a week. I haven't even had to do anything. She's the one that instigated it. And this is the first time she's ever instigated it in our whole marriage. It's just been great. It's ironic that the module we're in right now is about connection sessions and that kind of stuff. But this is her time of the month too. So we're not having sex. So we've been really thinking about and working through this connection session thing and what that means for us. And it's been good. That's leading up to today.
So she read the book at the same time that you did the MR program. Is that right?
No, she read it before I even started the MR program.
Oh, okay.
I think she was finishing it up our first week or two. She dove into it and read the whole thing right away. It wasn't like reading. She sent me a text one day because she goes, don't be mad at me. She goes, but I've done nothing today. And I was like, okay, whatever. She goes, because I've been reading this book. And I was like, sweet, like, awesome.
Praise God. That's incredible. If things were shifting, I'm curious what made you sign on to the MR program and what your experience has been over that.
Yeah, my wife was going through the book and she was listening to podcasts and stuff. And I've had almost a lifelong addiction to porn. And it's not even addiction. It's a sexual bondage. It's something I've struggled with since I was a little boy. And I was never molested or anything, but I can remember all the way back to being 5 and having these crazy sexual thoughts. Nobody showed me anything and they were just there. And so I've struggled with it all through my life. And so I've found freedom in it. I have good weeks and I have bad weeks. I have days where, just the sexual thoughts or sexual bondage thought just come in as a flood. And I can't even take a thought captive because there's so many of them flooding in. And other weeks it's just, I'm like, oh, whatever. And just acknowledge the thought and kick it out and just move on with my day. And everything's good. But I love learning and I love growing and more just information on how to help me process my own thoughts. And learning new ways to connect with my wife and understanding this creature they call woman, which is, the book's a mile thick on a woman. There's so much to them. But I know that I was at a bad month or a couple months really actually with sexual bondage and just trying to just stay afloat just in my own mind, and just with the pandemic and not going to church and my Bible study wasn't meeting and all this stuff. And I was just drowning. You can probably tell I'm a very social guy. That's how I unwind. That's how I refuel, is connection with friends and people. And so I just found myself drowning. Kind of everything and it's a God thing. Everything just hit at the right moment. My parents came up at the right time, and my mom was just very open and honest with what's going on in their marriage and their sex life. And it just opened doors. And then she introduced me to you as far as just your podcasts. Actually, you know what? I think what clicked for me and why I wanted to move forward with more of your stuff was listening to the interview with you and your husband. Not the newest one, but the one that was further back. And I remember just listening to it and I was just in tears half the time. That's what I want. Listening to your husband and him share about how he felt, not feeling respected and just feeling like one of the kids half the time and just that stuff. And I just remember just being in tears, just that pain of just wanting to be able to have that connection with my wife where she understands me and I understand her. And then that's when, shortly after I listened to those, that's when the MR program kind of came into the picture. And I remember looking at the cost going, holy cow, it's a lot of money that I don't have right now. And so I was on the phone with my mom and I didn't even ask. And she goes, Evan, if you want to do the program, I'll pay for it. My mom paid for it. To deny that there's a God with situations like this is just, I can't. Like everything just lined up perfectly. I don't know. I can talk forever about how awesome the program is. And for the program, as the program's concerned, I really didn't have any expectations about it. I just didn't know what to expect. And I knew a little bit just by listening to some of your podcasts and stuff and kind of reading about it. But I'm just learning that I just came to the conclusion that 90% of the class is about communication. Like, it's very little about sex, that it's more about learning how to communicate with each other and learning how my wife needs to be communicated with and how she needs to communicate with me, and both verbally, mentally, and physically. And yeah, it's just been great to just have these new tools and just new ideas and just new things to just try out. And on top of it, I have a wife who knows I'm doing the course and is in support of it. And so I get to share with her what I learn and share some of the modules with her, the ones that apply to her. But rather than me trying to explain it, I'm just like, hey, give me 15 minutes. Here, listen to this with me. And so it's been great.
A couple of the things that I remember you just sharing from the outset, how is communication between the two of you around sex now?
It is a complete 180-degree turn from what it was. Like I said, after reading that book, something broke in her and we're able to talk about it. Like I said before, we just couldn't talk about it because it would just be it would just turn into, not necessarily an argument, but it would just turn into us trying to discuss it. But then she would just get anxious and then just not want to talk about it. And then it would just go nowhere. And so now we are able to communicate openly and honestly about it.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah. I'm excited for this week's module because it's about being able to asking for what you want. And I'm nervous about that because every time I've asked before, even in a gracious, hey, let's just talk about it, totally open-ended, I have no expectations. Before, it was just, like I said, just kind of got that anxious and it just didn't go anywhere. And so now I'm nervous about it, but I'm excited to be able to start moving towards that with my wife and talk to her about what I want and what I desire as far as, that's concerned. So
that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. So communication has been great. Yeah, it's been great.
Wow. And you said from maybe once, maybe twice a month, and now 3 times a week. And she's initiating most of the time?
Yeah, three times a week. Yeah, I think 90% of the time. And she's usually hot and bothered before we even start now. Because before it would just...
Oh my gosh.
I liken it to starting an old lawnmower that hasn't been ran forever. You got to really pull on it for a while to warm it up. But now she's engaged, she's there, she's present, and it's been fantastic. I feel so much more fulfilled. And like I shared in the module in our time yesterday in class was I used to masturbate 3 times a week, if not more sometimes, but I haven't done it since because I literally don't feel like I necessarily need it. I totally feel fulfilled. I feel like I'm connected and that bucket of mine is full.
That's amazing. And what about the respect piece? Because you mentioned that early on as a huge area. You weren't coming home to refreshing respect, connection with your wife. How do you feel now when you come home?
Because because I understand the neural pathways that the brain creates them, there's a pretty big neural pathway there as far as I'm dealing with old mindsets now. Mindsets that I've had for years, things that are very ingrained into my mind, in my brain, and having to reprogram my brain. And so the whole sex piece has helped immensely. But now I'm still fighting. Once I get home, and after about 10 minutes after I get home, I can kind of unwind a little bit and fall into my wife. But on my way home, I still get anxious and I'm still fighting those old feelings as what am I going to come home to now? Because before when I would come home, my wife wouldn't be excited to see me because she hasn't seen me all day. She was excited to see me because now I can help with the kids. And same for her. She's having to reprogram her brain so that when I come home, it's not, oh, Evan's home, he can help me. Oh, my husband's home. I miss him. I'm so glad to see him. Yeah, because before I would just walk in the house and just go start doing my thing and little hi, how are you, love you, bye kind of thing. And then now I'm really purposefully, whether I feel it or not, when I walk in the door, I go give my wife a hug and hold her for a minute and just give her a kiss and say, I love you. the very first thing when I walk into the door. And then as well as before I leave the house, I go into the bedroom because she's usually still in bed. I just give her a kiss on the cheek and say, I love you. And I hope you have a great day. And just a quick little bye, because the truth is I can walk out that door and die. And I want her to remember me as someone who gave her a hug and kiss and told her I loved her before I left.
Yes, absolutely. It's beautiful.
So yeah.
Yes.
So we're in a work in progress.
Yeah.
But we're moving and it's been good. It's been really good.
Yeah. So in terms of just the program, is this something you would recommend and why and to who? What would you say?
Oh my gosh. Absolutely. The funny thing is so I introduced you to my friend Ryan, who's also the senior pastor of the church. He's one of my best friends of our church. And so he's been listening to your podcast, and so is his wife. And he sends me a text probably a month ago saying, thank you very much for introducing us to Bella. He goes, it's been awesome. Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. He's excited about it. And so actually he's in Alabama this week, but it's next week on Monday, we're actually going to get together for lunch, and I'm going to talk to him about the MR program. And I think there's a couple modules I'm going to have him watch just to get a better idea. Mm-hmm. This is probably something that we're going to start pitching at our church and really starting to push. 4 years ago, I started a program called Pure Desire at our church. It's not my program, but it's called Pure Desire Ministries. And a guy named Ted Roberts created it. But it's all about sexual bondage, about addictions, but mainly around sexual addiction for men and women. And so I started that program at the church, and it's a small group for men because I needed it. And so I was like, hey, if I need it, other people need it. But in pitching that and bringing it to the church, I preached a sermon that Sunday and gave my testimony as far as my struggle with sexual bondage and my addiction to pornography. And I told the whole church. Yeah. And so that really opened the door to talking about sex from the pulpit, obviously within reason, but yeah, it's been a move in our church over the last 4 or 5 years that we're trying to move sex and sexuality away from this old school idea that sex is only for procreation and that it shouldn't be talked about. And the truth is, married people have sex. There are 8 billion people in the world to prove it. And it's been a slow go, but our church is starting to really come alive to that and be open and honest. And I think what the straw that broke the camel's back that really opened the door was me coming up and sharing from the pulpit my struggles, that it's real. 61% of men struggle with some sort of sexual bondage of some sort. 41% of pastors struggle with it.
Wow.
It's not like there's just a couple people. There's a lot. There's a lot of men. There's a lot of women too.
I bet it's the percentage is even more.
It's probably more now. That was probably 4 or 5 years ago, the statistics were done. But yeah, it's 41% of pastors, 61% of men, and it was like 45% of women struggle with some sort of sexual bondage. And the majority, and with women, it's not even sex really. One of the addictions is romance novels because it's and the truth is the woman's addicted to fantasy. She lives in a fantasy world. So in her mind, there's this fantasy that she has. And so that just as bad as a man looking at porn, they're both fantasy worlds and they're not real. but yeah, so we started that movement through our church. And I've led 2 Pure Desire groups. And since then I'm starting a 3rd one as soon as this is over, actually. As soon as the MR program's over. Yeah, I can only do so much right now. So
that takes so much courage. That's amazing. Awesome. Okay. I think we'll just wrap with my final question of just, would you give any advice to a gentleman who may be considering joining the program? What would you say?
Oh my gosh. Here come the tears again. I cannot say enough about this program and all that it represents. In the beginning, when I first started hearing about MR program, I was nervous. Because you start having some woman talk about sex. It's usually some radical woman who's just totally way out in left field. But what I can say about Bella is that she is down to earth. Everything is just so scriptural and connection based, and it's nothing that's out of the ordinary. It's not trying to push a husband and wife to do something they're not comfortable with. And for the men out there, I just man up and quit hiding behind this idea of what the world calls masculinity and what it is to be a man, because the world's idea of a man is nothing. It's not what a man should be. It's not real. What the world says a man should be it's literally not possible. And I see so many men falling in the trap of trying to meet this world's standards of masculinity. from the media to the news to social media is just, yeah, this program just really helps you wrap your mind around what it truly is biblically to be a man, and how me and my manness is just able to connect. My masculinity complements her femininity, that we're supposed to work together. We're not separate. We need to be one. And yeah, I just, in a nutshell, that's really what it is to me to make that makes this program amazing, is it just kind of brings the truth back into it.
Oh, praise God. Oh, that's beautiful. Awesome. Well, Captain, you know what? I'm thinking about the gentlemen who may be listening to this or watching this and are really in a spot where you used to be, of one time a month, can't talk to your wife about it, feeling addicted to something, whether it's work or anything else, to try to get away from it. I would love for you to pray for those men, if you're open to it, that are in the spot you were several months ago.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Okay.
Heavenly Father, first of all, I just thank you. But I thank you for sending your son to die on the cross for us, to take that burden off of us. Lord, I thank you that he stands in the gap now, Lord. I thank you that we can come and enter into your Holy of Holies and just stand face to face with you and talk and be real, not hidden, not ashamed. First of all, thank you for that. Lord, I just pray for the men that are out there, Lord, that are just hurt, Lord, that they're struggling, they're angry, just frustrated, and just really don't even know where to go. Lord, I just pray that you would just begin to speak to their hearts and just open their minds, Lord, to who you are. Lord, I pray that you would give these courage to step outside their comfort zone. God, what's scary, the struggle. And Lord, I pray that you just give them the courage to step out and be able to make this step, just to step into your presence, Lord, and into your grace and into your mercy. And then that you would just show them the truth of what it is to be a man. And yeah, Lord, I just thank you for everything you do for us, Lord. I thank you that we stand before you cleansed because of your son. So we love you, Jesus, and we just lift the rest of this day up to you. In your name, amen.
Amen.
There are the tears. I'm the least empathetic person on the face of the planet. Like but when it comes to men and freedom and the men that are out there hurting, that are struggling, I have a pain. I feel their pain. I empathize with them. I struggle with them. And
yes.
Yeah, so it's close to my heart. Yeah.
Beautiful. Captain, thank you. I know this is going to touch so many. I know it's touched me. Thank you so much. Really.
Thank you. Thank you for everything you do. I'm actually looking forward to being able to start from square one again and go through the materials again. Just listen to the modules again. Because like I said, I've been working crazy mad hours and I just haven't had a lot of time. And I know I want to put more energy into all the materials. And I'm just looking forward to, even after it's done, to be able to watch all the modules again and just really be able to process through them, and maybe just have my wife listen to them too.
That's amazing. And that's actually a really good point, Captain, because even though you weren't able to time-wise, which I thought you were a great student, by the way, but the fact that did a lot through it, even though you were working, crazy hours. And so that's amazing to even hear. For those that are busy, like, would this still be helpful for me? So that's awesome.
Yeah, I started beating up myself. Like, we went on vacation, and as soon as I got back, man, I hit the ground running, just in our personal life and work, and it just went crazy. And I was having trouble to even find time to sit down and fill out my accountability form. Like, I was usually so exhausted at the end of the day that I just didn't even, I was like, I'm not even going to fill it out, because I'm just going to be doing it because I have to turn it in, not because I want to do it. And then I finally just gave up being upset and freaking out about it, and just realized, you know what, I can go through this material again and again and again.
Yep, absolutely.
And it all doesn't have to be right now. So yeah, I just love the program.
Thank you, Captain. Yeah. This is amazing.
You're welcome. Thank you too, Bella.
Amazing, Captain. Thank you so much for sharing your story, and it's been an honor to journey with you on this. So I want to give a quick encouragement to you listening, because the easy thought for a husband listening is like, okay, great. I am going to purchase Bella's book, Delight Your Husband, and my wife is going to change, and that's going to fix our marriage. So yes, it's a great book. I don't discourage women reading the book, but the problem is not, well, let me say it this way. I have worked with wives. They have done all the fancy things, all the stuff, right? My book is a Christian wife's manual to passion, confidence, and oral sex. I mean, I've got the seduction course. I've got the Delight Your Husband video course, the What's Keeping You from Your Godly Sexiness course. I've got the courses for wives, but listen, I've worked with women and they have done the fanciest of the fanciest, the fiercest of the fiercest, the most exciting of the most exciting. And if a husband does not understand his role, he has many times undermined her courage and the things she's doing that it's now, because what happens unfortunately is that it becomes short-lived. It becomes a short-term thing that's not actually going to be a long-term transformation in your marriage. And what ultimately happens is it pushes her farther away from wanting to do those things in your marriage, because she's going to be like, well, he wasn't satisfied even when I was doing X, Y, and Z. So it is key that you, dear husband, get your side of the street all cleaned up, all fixed up. So then when your wife is ready for a resource like the Delight Your Husband course or books or any of that stuff, she's got the solid foundation, which is you, the husband. And I think Captain really clarifies that really nicely, that you have to be the man that God wants you to be for your wife to be the woman that you are dreaming of. Awesome. Okay, well, that's a little coaching for free there, but come on the Men's Masterclass to understand what it is. The very specific things that you may accidentally be undermining your wife's confidence, freedom, and excitement for intimacy with you without knowing it. You think you're being helpful, and unfortunately, it is actually undermining all of the good things. So I look forward to having you there. Go to delightyourmarriage.com/men's training and sign up. It may be the very best thing you've done for your marriage in years and possibly decades. And that's not an overstatement when you talk to some of my clients. So I hope to see you there. God bless you. Love you. And thank you so much for listening. Talk to you soon. Bye.